Hello and welcome to the studio. Today I want to give you some tips and tricks about pinning the bottom into the bucket bag. So this is the bucket bag pattern. It's part of our Bag of the Month Club if you are sewing along with us. And the bottom on this can be a little bit tricky because it has to be very precise. This circle has been mathematically calculated to perfectly fit this rectangle. So I want to just give you some tips on how to get this in here and have it work beautifully. So I'm going to start with the lining piece. This piece is much easier to get in because it doesn't have this stabilizer on it. So this one has the stabilizer. This is a heavyweight sew-in, and it is going to stiffen things up and really eliminate any kind of a give or a bias stretch that you would have. So this piece is a little harder to get in to the pieced unit. So we're going to start with this one and just get our bearings on how this is going to work. So to start with, I've marked this circle in quadrants, and I've just pressed in a heavy seam here with my iron. And then on the rectangular piece, I've gone ahead and pinned where my quarter points are. So those are going to be sort of my starting points. So I'm going to line up these quarter marks with these quarter marks and get those 4 spots pinned in first. So that's pretty straightforward, and you want to make sure that you get these really right on. If you have one that's off, it's going to throw your whole circle off. So be sure and mark those carefully and then pin them very exactly. Okay, so now once you're to this point, you have your quarters pinned in. I like to work with the circle facing me so that I can see what's happening with this larger outside piece. And I just give this a little pull until I have the center points pinned between my fingers like that. And then I'm going to pin that one spot. And then I'm going to come over here and you can see right here, I'm just going to give that a little tug until it's lined up perfectly and pin that point. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the other side of just this one quadrant that I'm working on. Give that a little pull so these edges line up. Pin that center point. And then if you like a lot of pins, you can go ahead and do that again, but this is about how I like it, these 5 pins. Then I'll give it a quarter turn and start that whole process again. Give this a little tug until the edges meet, pin that with my fingers, and then put a pin in it. A little tug and do that halfway point. And then I'll go back and catch this one. And then you'll just do this all the way around. And this one goes in pretty simply, but you've got the idea there. So now on this one, I'm going to start exactly the same way. I've marked my quarter points on this one just by also pressing in a crease, but when I layered the fabric with that interfacing, I stitched that crease. So I have a stitched in mark. You'll need to somehow quilt these 2 pieces together, and so that's just how I do it, just to make it simple for me to pin it in, and I think it looks cute on the bottom like that too. So I've got my quarter marks here, and I've already pinned in my quarter marks here, and this needs to be wrong side out. And then I'm going to start with exactly the same process. I'm going to get my quarter points pinned. And this is a lot bulkier because you've got this heavyweight interfacing here, but it's still flexible. Okay, so once I have those 4 quarter points pinned, I really cannot do what I did before. Do you see how there's just no give here? It doesn't line up well. So what I like to do is just sort of pull it some and walk my way with my fingers to that center point. Now I've got the fabric, the interfacing, and then this other quilted fabric and interfacing. So I want to make sure all the edges are lined up perfectly. And once I get to that point, I can put a pin in here. And then here I'm going to stretch this out again. And it doesn't pull like the other one did. You can see that it just doesn't pull. So I'm just going to walk my fingers to the middle and line that up so it's just a nice, tidy little sandwich. give that a pin. And on this, actually this stiffer piece, I like to pin this in between part twice, just because I want it to not wiggle around on me at all. Then I'll go back to this other part of the quadrant, do the same thing. Walk my fingers to the middle, and I'm going to put 2 here. So this one has, I guess, 7 pins per quadrant instead of 5. And then we'll come over here and do it one more time. Just slowly get yourself lined up, walk yourself to the center, put a pin in it, then work out this quadrant. You really want this to be a nice smooth curve because it's the outside of your bag, the bottom edge, and you want it to look good. So take a little time here and get this exactly right. Now, after I get this whole thing pinned around, I like to turn it over and see what's happening out here on this outside edge. Now, there's going to be this sort of wrinkly, kind of bumpy crunchiness, and that's fine as long as there aren't any tucks or anything in here. I don't like this, so I'm just going to take that pin out and just work that out to be smooth and repin it. And now that little bump is gone, and I'll do that all the way around. I don't want any tucks sewn into my base here, and it just sort of happens with this heavy weight interfacing that those are just there, but you just need to make a small adjustment and it's fine. So I'll do that all the way around. Here's another little something weird. No, actually it's fine, it just looks weird. Here's one. Okay. So then my last tip for this is when you take it to the machine, I like to sew it with this part facing up, not this way. This way looks clean and tidy and easy to sew, but you can't see what's happening here with this part that's more rounded and has more bulk. So sew in from this side and sew it very slowly and just work your way around there. I don't like this, so I would make another little adjustment there as I sewed that in. So as long as this is face up, you can see that you need to make an adjustment and you'll be able to do that. Okay, those are all my tips. I hope that was helpful, and thank you for sewing along.